Howdy y'all, welcome to Texas Outdoor Cooking. This week I'm down in South Texas doing some hog hunting and some scouting for deer season. So I'm on my way out now to the deer stand, so I will check in when I get there. I just got out here. I got about a 300-yard walk to the blind. I'm going to try to keep it as quiet as possible on the way in there. It's pretty hot out here, so I don't think we're going to have much action until this evening, but you never know. I'm using my Mark 12 tonight. Since we are going for hog ribs, I wanted to make sure I had a good shot right behind the ear. But hopefully something comes out so we can make that happen, so stay tuned. I just got out to the stand. When I walked up, there were 4 big pigs in the Sondero, and I wasn't able to get a shot off, so I'm hoping I did not spook them too bad. But we're gonna have to wait and see. I'm thinking as it cools off this evening, they'll definitely come back out, but there's only one way to find out, so stay tuned. Alright, y'all, we got one. I shot it right behind the ear and dropped it in his tracks. It's a good eating size, probably about 80 pounds. So I'm gonna give it some time and I'll check it soon. Alright, y'all, well, we got one. She's about an 80-pound sow. There were 3 pigs that came out and 2 were boars. She was the only sow, so I took her. She's gonna be a perfect eating size. I'm in a rush right now because it's hot outside and I need to get her back and cleaned. So next time I see you, we'll be in the kitchen. Stay tuned. Today we're in the kitchen and we're going to start prepping these ribs. After cleaning the hog, I went ahead and got rid of any debris or hair that were on the outside of the meat, and I also soaked it in a 24-hour ice bath. Today we're going to go ahead and start removing all this fat and membrane, and by doing so it's going to get rid of any off flavors as well as increase the tenderness of your ribs. Alright, now that we've cleaned up our ribs, we're ready to move to the next step. Once we've trimmed our ribs, we're going to go ahead and make a simple brine. Due to wild pork being much leaner than commercial pork, it has a tendency to dry out when you cook it. This brine will allow the meat to absorb more water and salt, which will ultimately result in a more juicy, tender rib. To make the brine, we're going to use 1.5 gallons of water, 1.5 cups of salt, and 1.5 cups of brown sugar. We're going to dump that in the cooler. We're going to stir it up until it dissolves. Once that dissolves, we're going to add some ice. We will then add in our ribs, push them down in there, and then we'll add more ice. We're going to let those sit for 24 hours, and then we're going to pull them out tomorrow, and we will get them in the smoker. Stay tuned. Alright y'all, we let these ribs sit in the brine for about 24 hours, and I went ahead and took them and rinsed them off in the sink. You want to make sure you do that or your ribs will be very salty. So we're going to go ahead and start spicing these up with some mustard, and I'm using Fiesta brand rib rub. You can make your own, you can do whatever you want. This is just what I'm using. So we're going to take this mustard, which you will not taste on your ribs, but it allows the seasoning to have something to stick to, as well as it'll help make a pretty good bark. So you don't need a ton, just enough. Again, you can use your hands. I'm using a brush just to be clean. Use a lot of seasoning. Again, like I said, when we were trimming these, wild pork does not have a lot of fat, so there's not a lot of flavor. So you want to make sure you get a lot of seasoning on there. Let me get that on there real good. Make sure you get that everywhere. Pat in a little bit. Perfect. And now we're going to let these ribs get to about room temperature, and we're going to take it out and get the smoker going. The smoker's ready. It's around about 225 degrees. I went ahead and added a thermometer to the ribs. For those of you who don't have this, I'll start a timer. But we're going to go ahead and open up this smoker. Watch out for the smoke. We're going to add these ribs to the top rack. Do this. Get that timer going. And we will check in soon. It's been about 45 minutes. The ribs are up to 130 degrees. So now we're going to add the sauce and wrap. I use Frank's Red Hot Stan Honey Garlic Sauce. And we're going to go ahead and pour this all over the ribs. I like this over barbecue sauce, but you can use what you want. Add a bunch. And baste with this brush. Add more. Now we're going to cook them to about 160 degrees and they'll be done. Stay tuned. We just pulled the ribs off. They're about 165 degrees. They cook for about 2 hours. So we're gonna go ahead and cut into these guys. Take this one. Looks good. Dip in some of the sauce. You can't beat that. That's delicious. We kept the moisture in. The sauce hits perfect. So I want you guys to try this out for yourself. And I'll see y'all next week.